He stood 6.5 feet tall, filled the television screen like no cowboy before him, and captivated millions of viewers every single week. Yet behind that towering frame and easy Western charm was a man who survived poverty, reinvention, heartbreak, and a brush with death so close that doctors briefly pronounced him gone. This is the real story of Clint Walker, not the legend crafted by a Hollywood studio, but the man who lived it. Clint Walker was born on May 30th, 1927, in the small town of Hartford, Illinois. He came into the world alongside a twin sibling, into a family of modest means with Czech roots. There was no glamour in his early years, no hint that a boy from a working-class Illinois household would one day become one of television's most recognizable faces. Instead, Walker's childhood was shaped by hard, physical work. He left formal schooling behind early, choosing instead to earn his way through life with his hands. He worked in a factory, then on a riverboat, absorbing lessons that no classroom could teach him: discipline, endurance, and self-reliance. At just 17 years old, Walker joined the United States Merchant Marine, trading the riverboats of his youth for the open ocean. It was a decision that placed him in the middle of genuine adventure and hardship, sailing to different ports and living a life far removed from the comfort most teenagers knew. When his service ended, Walker didn't settle down. Instead, he drifted through a string of jobs across the country, in Brownwood, Texas, Long Beach, California, and eventually Las Vegas, Nevada. In Las Vegas, he took work as a doorman at a prominent hotel, a job that, in hindsight, feels almost poetic, the future Western icon standing at the entrance of a glittering establishment, still years away from stepping into the spotlight himself. When the Korean War broke out, Walker didn't hesitate. He returned to the Merchant Marine, once again answering the call to serve his country. It was only after this second stint that Walker began drifting toward the world that would eventually define him: Hollywood. His path into the entertainment industry wasn't paved by connections or privilege. It began with a chance encounter with Henry Wilson, a talent agent with a reputation for discovering and shaping unknown men into stars. Wilson saw something in Walker: his rugged good looks, his commanding 6'6" frame, his quiet intensity, and decided the young drifter had star potential. But there was a catch. Wilson insisted on remaking Walker's identity entirely, giving him a new stage name: Jet Norman. For a brief period, the man-born Clint Walker performed under this manufactured Hollywood name, a common practice at the time meant to create a more marketable image. Eventually, though, he would return to using his birth name, the one that would become synonymous with a golden era of television westerns. Walker's physical presence was impossible to ignore. Standing 6 feet 6 inches tall, with broad shoulders and an imposing build, he had the kind of look casting directors dreamed about. That presence caught the attention of producers searching for a lead for a new television series, and in June 1955, the announcement came: Clint Walker would star as Cheyenne, a wandering cowboy navigating the rugged, unsettled landscape of the post-Civil War American West. The show, simply titled Cheyenne, began as part of a rotating anthology series but quickly proved itself the standout among its peers. Walker's performance, combined with strong writing and his undeniable screen presence, turned the show into a genuine phenomenon. Audiences tuned in not just for the storytelling, but for Walker himself, his commanding physicality, his quiet charisma, and yes, the frequent shirtless scenes that became something of a signature for the series. Cheyenne ran for 8 remarkable seasons, cementing Walker as one of television's first true Western heartthrobs. He even lent his rich baritone voice to musical moments on the show, talent enough that Warner Brothers produced an album of him singing traditional folk songs and ballads. Despite his massive television success, Walker remained devoted almost exclusively to Western roles, and he made no secret of his preference. In 1956, he was quoted as saying that Westerns kept him active and outdoors, and that he had little interest in pursuing other genres. That devotion led Warner Brothers to cast him in feature films as well, including Fort Dobbs in 1958, where prominent film critic praised him as one of the finest-looking Western heroes to ever appear on screen. The film's box office performance, however, was modest. Undeterred, the studio placed him in another Western the following year, Yellowstone Kelly, alongside a co-star from the popular series 77 Sunset Strip. It performed respectably, further establishing Walker's bankability as a leading man within the genre. As his career progressed, Walker began branching out from strictly Western fare. He took a dramatic turn in the anthology series Croft Suspense Theatre, sharing the screen with the great Robert Duvall, and later showed his comedic range in the 1964 Rock Hudson and Doris Day film Send Me No Flowers. A year later, Frank Sinatra himself cast Walker in the lead role of None But the Brave, a war drama notable for being the only film Sinatra ever directed. It was a significant vote of confidence in Walker's dramatic abilities, proving he was far more than just a Western pinup. Perhaps the biggest milestone of his film career came in 1967, when Walker joined the star-studded cast of The Dirty Dozen, playing the meek convict Samson Posey. The film became a massive hit and remains a classic of the war genre to this day. It was, by far, the largest commercial success of Walker's career, and it demonstrated his ability to disappear into a role entirely unlike his tough guy Western persona. Throughout the late 1960s and into the 1970s, Walker continued working steadily, in comic westerns like Sam Whiskey and the Great Bank Robbery, in ensemble films, and in a string of television movies produced for the ABC Movie of the Week, including Yuma, Hard Case, and The Bounty Man. He later starred in the short-lived series Kodiak, playing an Alaskan state trooper, and appeared in projects ranging from the biopic Pancho Villa to the horror television film Snow Beast and the western The White Buffalo, opposite Charles Bronson. He even had a role in the sprawling television miniseries Centennial, a sweeping historical saga of the American West that fit naturally with the themes he had spent his career exploring. But behind this steady, decades-long career was a man who had already stared death directly in the face, and won. In May 1971, Clint Walker was skiing on Mammoth Mountain in California when disaster struck. Losing control on the difficult terrain, Walker tumbled violently down the slope before coming to an abrupt, brutal stop. In the fall, one of his ski poles pierced straight through his chest, driving into his heart. The injury was so severe that when he arrived at the hospital, doctors initially believed he was already dead. It was only the vigilance of one doctor, who detected faint signs of life, that changed everything. Medical staff rushed him into emergency surgery, where they managed to repair the catastrophic damage to his heart. Remarkably, within just 2 months, Walker was back at work, a testament to both his own resilience and the surgical skill that saved him. Years later, Walker spoke about the experience in deeply personal terms, describing what he called a near-death experience during the incident, a moment that seemed to shape his outlook on life going forward, even if he kept most of the details private. It was the kind of story that could have ended an entire career, or life, and instead became just one chapter in a much longer one. Away from the screen, Walker's personal life was defined by long-term commitment. He married 3 times, each marriage lasting roughly 2 decades. His first marriage, to Verna Garver in 1948, produced his only child, a daughter named Valerie, born in 1950. That marriage ended in divorce in 1968. Valerie would go on to build her own remarkable path in life, becoming one of the early female commercial airline pilots, a pioneering spirit that, in many ways, echoed her father's own restless, adventurous nature. Walker was also known for his personal convictions outside of acting. He described his household's diet as largely avoiding beef, while still eating chicken and salmon, a dietary choice that reflected his personal values. Politically, he was open about his support for Barry Goldwater during the 1964 presidential election, aligning himself publicly with the conservative movement of that era. In his later years, Walker turned his creative energy toward writing. After a chance meeting facilitated by fellow actor James Drury, Walker connected with Western author Kirby Jonas. The two spent 2 years developing a story together, one centered on gold and conflict tied to the Yaqui people of the American Southwest. Their collaboration eventually became the 2003 novel Yaqui Gold, a project that let Walker contribute to the Western storytelling tradition he had spent his life portraying on screen, this time from behind the pen instead of in front of the camera. His contributions to the industry were formally recognized many times over. He received a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, located on Vine Street near its intersection with Sunset Boulevard. In 2004, he was inducted into the Hall of Great Western Performers at the National Cowboy and Western Heritage Museum in Oklahoma City. In 1997, he received the Golden Boot Award, an honor reserved for those who made significant contributions to Western film and television. And in 2017, decades after leaving Texas as a young man chasing work, he was honored with a medallion on the Texas Trail of Fame in the Fort Worth Stockyards, a recognition of his roots and his lasting cultural impact. Clint Walker lived an extraordinarily full life, one that took him from factory floors and riverboats to the deck of a merchant marine ship, from a hotel doorway in Las Vegas to the biggest sets in Hollywood, and from the edge of death on a snow-covered mountain back to decades more of work and family. On May 21, 2018, just 9 days shy of his 91st birthday, Clint Walker passed away from congestive heart failure in Grass Valley, California. He left behind a legacy not just as a towering Western icon, but as a man who had quite literally cheated death, and used the extra decades he was given to keep building a life worth remembering.